Hello everyone, welcome to another 3D design activity brought to you by the Corona Public Library's Maker Exchange. My name is Mr. Martin, and today I'm showing you how to make a quick and easy phone stand that you can snap right onto your smartphone or tablet. So let's get started, shall we? With Tinkercad loaded up, the first thing I'm going to do is change my project name to phone stand. Our snap grid we're going to leave at 1 millimeters, and we're going to insert a box. I know, shocking, right? Now this is going to serve as the base to our stand, and here's where we have to think about the dimensions specific to our phone. If you're going to be watching any kind of media on this, you're probably going to lay it down in landscape orientation, and my phone happens to be about 14 centimeters, or in this case 140 millimeters wide. Now we do want to give ourselves a bit of leeway. This here matches the dimensions of our phone. And what I want to do now is be able to cut out a portion of this to fit my phone inside of it. So I do have to expand these dimensions a bit. And here's where we have to think, okay, what are the limitations of our printer? Do I need to make it more than 3 millimeters on each side? Is it going to be more than a layer thick? And so here I change the dimensions accordingly, depending on how thin or thick I want the edges to this case stand to be. And as you can see here, the height right now doesn't matter as much since we can adjust that in the final build. Speaking of the cutout, it is now time to create it. So we're going to remake the box that we had originally. We could have copied and pasted, but I had a bit of explaining to do. So we're going to change the dimension. Oop, not that dimension. Go back. There we go. So we're going to make it about 1 centimeter wide and 14 centimeters long, or in this case, 10 by 140. And we're not going to worry too much about the height. Here I do make it 4, just to kind of visualize how much space I'm going to be cutting out of that initial box. Again, the end result here is to be able to fit my phone inside of the larger stand. So here I can use the alignment tool and I can see, okay, well that's going to look pretty good if I end up cutting it out. As you can see, that I still need to raise it up. But we're going to click undo here real quick. And then, okay, now I just need to change the height. And then I realize, wait, I can simply just change the actual dimension on the object. Since I'm going to be cutting out, it doesn't matter how tall it is as long as it's only cutting out a certain amount from the base object here. And to make sure, I'm actually going to use the alignment tool. So I change it to whole. I'm going to center it, not along all of the axes. As you can see here, if I do that and perfectly center it, it cuts off too much material. So I'm only going to center it across 2. And here it is just right. So with it aligned, I then select both in group, and it successfully cuts out a giant hole in the base where my phone can fit. The next step is to insert the piece that will actually hold up our device. Now, you could insert a box and adjust it to fit whatever needs you need, or we can simply scroll down here and insert a wedge. And I chose the wedge just because of its ease of use. It's pretty much already the shape we need. But if I'm going to be laying down my device on a flat surface, I need this to be centered to prevent it from falling over. Now, once the wedge is in place here, I can use the keyboard arrows to simply nudge it on over. And what I'm doing here is nudging it enough to where it is solidly within the base, so that when I group them, it's not, there's no material hanging off, but it's not also interfering with the gap that I've created for the phone. So here I select both and group them, and we have a very rudimentary base. We could possibly use this, but we're going to edit the design a little further. Now, as I mentioned, this is very rudimentary here. In order to increase the stability of this base, one thing we can simply do is just make this wider. Now, if I do that, it's obviously going to be a little more stable once I put it flat on the ground. It's less likely to tip over, but I do want to make sure it is still aligned. Once again, if we group these, we can even try inserting a different shape that might work better and edit any one of those. But again, this one's simple, it works, it's easy to use, it's easy to print, and now we can group it and have our base again. Now, as with most designs, there is room for improvement. This is obviously very rudimentary still, and I can customize it and make it a bit more stable to actually hold up a larger variety of devices. So the first thing I'm going to do is insert a backplate, and this backplate will essentially let me fit taller or wider objects into the base. So ideally, I'd be able to hold larger or taller phones, or in this case, bigger screens, on this same phone stand or device stand. Now here, I do want to make sure it is aligned, so I'm going to use the alignment tool. Again, I don't center it across the, in this case, what would be the y-axis, because then that would put it smack dab in the middle of the base. I made sure to only align it across the axes that I needed it aligned. And in this case, I simply copied and paste. And what I want to do is show kind of, further customization here. I don't need all of that material, so I'm going to create a smaller cutout. All I need is the support. I don't need this whole piece to be solid. So I'm going to shrink this by about 5 millimeters on each dimension. And then when I move it over, I'm going to create a nice 5 millimeter support here in the back. So align it with the already pre-existing part. Since I still have that middle or the smaller piece selected, I can simply choose the whole option from here and then group them, and it'll create my cutout. Here I lost the selection, but luckily I can simply click on it again. Now here I can adjust the height, but really don't need to do that, so I'm going to leave it where it is. And finally create the cutout. Now it almost looks a bit like a sofa or a couch, and one thing to keep in mind is that if I were to print this as is, the entire bar in the back is floating, and so I would need to either print supports or flip this on one axis to make sure that it can print all on one flat surface. But for now, I'm going to move forward with the design. And as I might have mentioned earlier, I'm going to make sure that I have the feet here on both sides. So cutting this piece here by more than half, I can save on potential material that I'm using. Even though I have 2 feet now, if each one is significantly smaller, I can create the same amount of stability, if not more, and also use less material overall. So it's a win-win in my book. And this will also come in handy when, if I ever do decide to put devices that might not be of a regular size or regular weight or balance, ensuring that I have these feet here will help me fit more devices on there. So once I have them in place, group them, and there we have it. There is our basic phone stand. Friends, from here, you could always customize or trim, curve the edges if you need to, but there we go. That does it for today's design. A very quick and easy phone stand that's flexible and convenient. We hope you've enjoyed today's video. We'll see you in the next one.